Hello and welcome to today's video. My name's Haley and today we're continuing on within this 10th gene key called Being at Ease into the gift of naturalness. Oh, that's what I was like, what was I gonna intro with? I was just gonna point out my shirt because I think it's funny. It says, I can't believe pine cones exist, and there's this weird like, you guys probably can't even see it. There's this weird like frog thing in a pine cone. And I just feel like it perfectly embodies my personality. If you know me, you know this is something I'd wear. So anyways, one of my favorite shirts. And sorry, as I said that, I just realized I was putting it on a hierarchy. Going back to gene key, I believe that's 7, where we talk about hierarchy. Yep, gene key 7. Interesting. Anyways, yeah, shadow division, gene key 7. Not to put shirts on hierarchies, but this is my favorite shirt. Anyways, today we're talking about gene key 10. That was like a little thought loop of mine. Being at ease, the gift of naturalness. So what is naturalness? Before I even read this chapter, I think of the words that are synonymous to the word natural. Being at homeostasis, being quite literally in attunement with the nature around you, the trees, the birds, the plants, eating natural foods, drinking natural sources of water, like running rivers, not from these plastic bottles. To be natural. Nature is relaxed in the sense that it's quite literally going with the flow of natural disasters and growing where it wants to, where it may, where the seeds fall. It's kind of like an organized chaos. And it's completely unique, right? If you look at a forest, one day you go to bed, you look at the forest, the next day something has changed, even if it's just that a leaf has fallen or a lizard was there in that snapshot when you first viewed it and now that lizard's not there. It's always changing, even if the changes are minuscule and sometimes drastically within a short amount of time, right? If a natural disaster does occur. So these are just all the concepts I'm trying to fill my head with before I see what Richard Rudd says to speak of naturalness. And actually the first contemplation of this video, I've never done this, but before I even get into this, I invite you to pause this video and ask yourself, in addition to what I just said, what does naturalness mean to you? What comes to mind? What images, symbology, I don't know if that's a word, symbology, symbolism, what do you think of? Or what thinks of you when I pose you simply the word naturalness? I feel that's important because it kind of sets the frame and the foundation for what Richard Rudd is about to speak like to. His first sentence in this section is, the gift of naturalness is a gift that waits within every single human being. Every single one of us. None of us are excluded from this gift of naturalness. And actually, I personally think none of us are excluded from any of these 64 gene keys. I know if you go onto the website, you can plug in your birthday, time, place, and get specific makeup that assigns you to 11 keys. However, in reading and psychoanalyzing this text, I have found that all of these keys are within every single one of us, and that's something that's beautiful. But he drives it home here. This is a gift that waits within every single human being. It's how you express your own creative uniqueness, he says. To be natural means to be yourself. And there's his first definition that he offers us. I offered you my personal contemplations. Then I asked you to pause the video, contemplate yourself. And now, Richard Rudd's first definition, he says to be natural means to be yourself. And then, naturally I think of, okay, well, What does it mean to be myself? And this is one of those questions where it's not meant to be solved through only masculine energy. And by that, I mean not simply only through the mind. This is something to be felt through, right? You can't really know yourself unless you also feel yourself, feel those emotions, those energies running through you. So what does it mean to be myself? What does it mean to be natural? This is something that's experiential, based not only in getting to know what I like to eat, what I like to do, who I like to be around, but also how I feel, how I experience, how I perceive the world around me. We're all just trying to be who we are, he says. Yeah. But many of us have been conditioned to be other than who we are. Once again, this big question, who are we? Who am I? That's a very classic question in the spiritual community. Who am I? Once again, not something you can only answer with analysis. And I'll just point out here that he says that we've been conditioned to be other than who we are. Who conditioned us? Oh yeah, society, programming through the commercials. I mentioned that in the last video, how the Botox commercials programming women of all ages to suddenly generate these beliefs that just simply aren't true. So we're gaining our programming through those two factors, also through school. Whatever demographic you belong to or neighborhood you live in is also programming you to a subliminal degree. I gave the example in the last video of I used to live in the Western world in America. Now I live in Southeast Asia. Very different programs running in each place. You're also programmed by everything that has a sign. I mean, even this is programming. I can't believe pine cones exist. I can't really tell you what program this is, but it is a program nonetheless. Every single thing around you that's offering you information, whether that's through visual or actual words, is programming you. And I guess perhaps the biggest one of this modern day being social media. What I consume programs me. The food I consume programs my cells to act a certain way. The information I consume on the internet and on social media programs the way I think. The ads I see program the way I dress. I could go on here. And this, once again, is preventing me from being who I am. This is preventing you from being who you actually are, from this realness. I'll put it this way. You can ask yourself this: who would I be if all the programs I currently digest were to disappear? And this is the work, right? Uncovering that naturalness, that realness of being underneath all of these layers of conditioning. Oh, I forgot this. He brings up that primordial question, who am I? And he notes that the reason this question has arisen in the human psyche is because of a human's ability to reflect on itself, right? This is what differentiates humans from animals. Humans have this metacognition, this ability to reflect on their actions and conjure up emotions in accordance to that reflection, whereas animals are purely primal. I need water, I need food, I need to make some babies, and I need to make sure my gene evolves. Humans have these primal needs in addition to metacognition, the ability to reflect. And this is where the question, who am I, was birthed out of. And he notes here that actually prior to this question, prior to the metacognition, human beings did live in a state of naturalness. So once again, if humans were to take a step back into the animal kingdom, if we're talking more woo-woo terms here, back when only the first and second energy center were online, you would see that we live in a state of naturalness. Animals move in accordance to nature, in accordance to their own rhythm, which I believe is still called a circadian rhythm. I could be wrong. By that, I mean when they want to sleep, they sleep. When they want to eat, they eat. When they need to feed their babies, they feed their babies. There's no, oh, I know I need to feed my babies, but I'm 10 minutes late to go see Amy and pick up that soccer ball and the soccer gear. So, okay, we're going to postpone dinner just by a little bit while we detour to Amy's house to get all the soccer stuff. Like, animals don't do this. There's no external stress in addition to the primal needs. There's no ability to reflect on, oh, right, I was supposed to go get the soccer gear. And no, it's just primal needs are first and foremost. And actually, something I learned today is that the word priority used to only mean one thing. This word priorities, implying that we have more than one thing we need to prioritize, is a modern evolution of the word. So animals only have one priority, which is their primal needs, including a whole host of things, right? Whereas humans have priorities. Okay, yeah, all the primal needs, but also it's a priority for me to go get the soccer gear from Amy. It's a priority for me to go get my coffee from my favorite coffee shop. I can't go to the subpar one down the street. It's a priority for me to be on time to school. Laundry list of things. And so once again, it's in this ability to use our prefrontal cortex to reflect that we also add stress, which creates that separation and drives us out of our natural state of being, our gift of naturalness. Okay, so we can't necessarily take a step back in evolution, re-enter the animal kingdom, nor do we want to. The prefrontal cortex and the ability to look back on our actions and choose the more loving route each time is a beautiful gift. And in order to use it the right way, we need to simply just go about things slightly differently. So he says this primal question, who am I, has to be answered before this gift of naturalness can once again be realized. Cool. That should be an easy task. Yeah, all you have to do, Richard Rudd says, is answer the question, who am I? And then dink, you're back in that gift of naturalness while still being a human. Okay, so I read that and I go, great. That sounds like an easy task. Luckily, we're only halfway through this chapter, so I kept reading. This is a paradox, by the way, as are all things in life. Life itself is a paradox. You cannot be who you are as long as you think you are someone. Okay, I read that and I was like, wow, my head feels like it's on the teacup ride in Disneyland. What? You cannot be who you are as long as you think you are someone. And then I kept reading. But you still have to set off and search for this someone in order to realize they do not exist. Okay, so he's describing here the archetype of the hero. If you're not familiar with that archetype, you can go on YouTube and Google archetype the hero. I'm going to quickly give a very truncated definition of that. If you've ever read The Alchemist or any other hero's journey tale, essentially the hero, the main character, the protagonist, is living a very quote-unquote mundane life and feels the desire to go out away from home in search from something outside of itself. And it sets off on this huge journey, goes through these highs and lows, only to finally attain the treasure and realize that it needs to go back home, or everything it ever wanted was back home. This is, like, in a nutshell, the archetype of the hero. Once again, that was like a very quick download of that. I highly recommend you look up that archetype if you would like to know more about that. The reason this is important is because this is what he's alluding to in this sentence. You still have to set off in search for this someone. So let's just say, I am the hero. I still have to set off in search of this purpose, this something that I feel like is going to fulfill me, that I feel like is going to help me know me, in order to realize that they don't exist. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to stop explaining right there because once again, this is already paradoxical in nature, meaning the more words I spit at you, the more confusing it will get. I think understanding the hero archetype can really help a person unpack this section for themselves. It's a releasing of tension around the identity. It's a letting go of the ego. It's a dying off, a dark night of the soul. An unveiling of love, which perhaps is my favorite definition because it's a little bit more like heartwarming. Okay, here he drops quite the bomb. He says, once you understand, and to truly understand something, to truly know something, is more than just to have the factual evidence in your brain. To truly know something means to have it downloaded into your whole being. Your conscious mind that you used to think, and your subconscious mind, which is your body. So once you understand that you are neither your name, your actions, your feelings, your thoughts, or your beliefs, you realize that human nature is something far greater and wider than you ever suspected. Wait a second. If I'm not my name, my actions, my feelings, my thoughts, or beliefs, then what am I? Very simply put, I am the observer. I am presence, I am love. Once again, I can spit all of this out you, but this is not something that you can only logically understand and move on with. This is something you have to understand, download into your entire vessel. And yeah, I think we're all walking each other home on this one. And one example I really like that has actually helped me greatly with deprogramming some of the wild things I allowed myself to be programmed with in the modeling industry is for a long time, I really actually thought part of who I was a model. Fundamentally, I to a T believed this. And then one day it dawned on me, I'm a model. My name's Haley Snyder. I'm a model. I'm signed with Next. Okay, then what happens? I said to myself, what happens if right now I quit? I go to my agencies, I cut the contract, I take it off my Instagram, I delete all the photos. Then what happens? Is it still who I am? Am I still a model? And it dawned on me that this title, this job title of model was once there, highly identified with, but then in a moment I can actually make a decision and then take actions in the physical 3D reality. And now I'm still the same, I'm still here, but now part of me is not me. So then was it ever me? This is something I had a thought of because I'd read in a lot of spiritual texts that who you are is eternal in nature. Eternal meaning it's always present. It's a constant. It's not something that can be deleted or taken away or quit or crossed off. And so this is a nice thing to think about. Who you are, very simply put, that all the sages supposedly say is eternal in nature. That's something to meditate on and sit with, that I still meditate on and sit with quite often. Because once again, Richard Rudd reminds us that we are no longer our name, because your name's not eternal. Technically right now, I, Haley Snyder, could go to the office, whatever, change my name to Loving Star Child. That's what my dad calls me sometimes. I could literally do that. You know, I could go to the government and do that, and I'd still be here. So it must not be who I am fundamentally. I'm neither my name. Sorry, that made me laugh. Loving Star Child. I'm neither my name, my job. What else does he say? My actions, my feelings, my thoughts, or beliefs. So that's a whole thing to unpack. I invite you to sit with this question, who am I, in meditation, if that feels resonant. And if not, let's proceed. I feel like the more I make these videos, the more notes I make. It's actually just like, it's becoming absurd. But anyway, I have to cherry pick here of what I'm actually going to speak like too. Okay, so he notes here that as you attempt to release these different labels, these different parts of your ego is entirely made up of labels. Thoughts, beliefs, names, jobs, friends, family, stories. As you start to take off these labels, you're peeling an onion layer by layer, you actually release so much energy. So you can kind of actually think about it like an onion that has all these layers. As you take a layer off, you can think about this that I'm peeling off being a label, releasing energy, releasing negative energy, and unleashing the creative life force that is at your core, that is at your juicy little onion center. It's so beautiful. The art in you guys is so beautiful. It's going to make people cry as these layers are coming off. Because onions make you cry if that didn't land. Anyway. And this is true. I've noticed as I start to shed certain labels, like the whole model thing, certain creativities have come out of me, like poetry, singing, making videos, whatever. And then it makes you wonder, as I continue to peel my onion, what other things will be unleashed and revealed to not only me, but also my environment. This is something to get excited about. The more you become embodied in your state of naturalness, the more who you are, which is beautiful and creative and art-filled, will start to showcase itself. Intense creativity. This is what's coming out from the center, coupled with a sense of playfulness. And this makes sense, right? You can think of a child. When a little nugget comes out of the womb, it doesn't have all of these labels. It has some, even from the get-go. As soon as it comes out into the world, oh, you're a baby. This is your name. Your hair is brown. This is your story. Here's your mom, dad. But as you move through life, as you grow up, you start to acquire more layers on your onion. The onion literally grows. Wow, this is a great analogy I just made up. And as the onion grows, you get layers, and then it's the delayering. That is the shedding. So it would make sense that as you start to shed, take off these layers, you return to that natural sense of playfulness that you had as a child. Less labels equals more playfulness. Less onion layers equals more playfulness. In addition to that, which already sounds pretty sweet, honestly, creativity, playfulness, you also attain a new sense of rising inner freedom and spaciousness. And I don't know about you, but I want some freedom. I would actually beg to say that most people watching this would like some freedom. I would say freedom sounds pretty much good to everyone, so this should be the incentive to start to exit that shadow state of self-obsession and enter this gift frequency of naturalness. Oh, and then he adds some more. You'll also start to notice increasing ease and relaxedness, because I'm no longer using all of my precious life force energy to uphold these illusions, these labels, fit myself into careers that just don't match me. Now I'm just being who I am naturally. Therefore, I have all of this energy I used to basically waste on upholding these things that don't serve me, that now has been restored to me. And this is the same energy that now gets used to express as creativity and art. Energy is neither created and destroyed. I'm not using my energy, my precious energy, to go towards bullshit anymore, to go towards things that I am just not. Now I'm using that energy to be who I am, which once again is a very intensely creative person, someone who's very playful, someone who's free and spacious, at ease and relaxed. Oh, wow. There's still quite a bit to talk about here, honestly. Let's see if I can just choose. You know, I actually might make a part 2 to this, because I'm only halfway through and I'm coming up on my stopping point. So yes, return back tomorrow if you would like a part 2 to this gift of naturalness. And yeah, because this next section, I'm like, there's just no way I can truncate this, because he actually mentions Young, who I often accidentally call Jung because of the way it's spelled. And yeah, this part's really interesting. So I'll see you guys tomorrow to continue discussing this. And yeah, love and aloha. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in with me for this Gene Keys episode. I also just wanted to come on here and start promoting my one-to-one coaching that I offer to women and girls ages 16 to 35. If you've followed me on Instagram for a while, you might be a little bit familiar with my story. I was a model in New York City for 5 years, and in that time frame, I did quite some damage. I developed a really severe eating disorder, body dysmorphia, chronic anxiety. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even go out to dinner without thinking about how much calories, how much I'd have to overwork out in order to compensate for what I was eating. All of those issues led to quite a depression and turned into PCOS, and I also lost my menstrual cycle for over 5 years. All of this amalgamation of issues led me to soon realize that something needed to change. I went through much work. Many people helped me to get to where I am now, and I'm so thrilled to say I'm living such a more abundant life, and I don't feel zapped and drained and fear of judgment anymore like I used to. I would love to offer what I've learned through my own embodied experience, the meditative techniques that have gravitated toward me, and the own verified games that I've made up and curated to help you walk home to more of you and who you really are, so that all of these things can stop draining your energy. You know, all the constant comparison to others and to your people on Instagram, all the over-analysis about working out and what you're eating or what you look like. All of these things are not what life's about, as cheesy as it sounds. And I would love to help you come into more unity with you if you struggle with any of these things and you're a woman or girl between the ages of 16 and 35. So feel free to reach out to me if one-on-one coaching sounds resonant. You can feel free to DM me through Instagram or contact me via email, both of which will be left below in the description box. So much love and aloha to you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.